Today we're going to be unboxing, setting up, and reviewing the NYXI Chaos Pro controller for Nintendo Switch. We're going to rate this controller based on 15 categories including ergonomics, warranty, and build quality. We're going to measure the out-of-the-box thumbstick dead zones and accuracy. We're going to check the input delay or lag and see how this controller is accepting of being overclocked. Surprise, it's not, it's polling rate locked. Then I'm going to show you how to remap the rear buttons, control that RGB around the thumbsticks, set up macros and turbo function, how to pair this to a Nintendo Switch and PC, and I'll give you my final verdict. Let's get it. So price, platform, and where to buy. This controller is designed for Switch, so that includes the Switch OLED and Switch Lite, of course, and naturally PC, as there's driver support for anything. Now, there's a huge price discrepancy here. On their website, it said it retailed for $67, but on sale for $45.99. Coming over here to Amazon, it's $28.99. Plus, there's a 10% coupon, bringing it down to $26.99. Regardless, I would recommend buying it on Amazon because you are getting Prime shipping, so it'll get to you in 2 days, and Amazon has a no questions asked return policy, so if for some reason the controller's dead on arrival or you just simply don't like it, you can return it. However, after testing and playing with this controller extensively, I don't think you're going to return it if it's not broken because it's actually pretty good, especially for the price point. So as for the packaging and included accessories on the NYXI Chaos controller, very tiny box, almost the size of the controller itself. Red branding on the top because of course it is a Nintendo Switch product. Your controller is held in place with this plastic mold. Very basic packaging, however this is a budget controller. The included instruction pamphlet is very informative, relatively small font, but English is the primary language. It does have full color pictures and explains how to pair this via Bluetooth and use this on Switch and PC. You do also have an included USB-C cable. This is relatively short at about 3 feet. It is not braided or microfiber, just rubberized. It is relatively light and flexible though, but since this is very short, if you are going to be playing with this controller paired to your PC, plugged into the front of your tower, I would recommend using your own USB-C cable. As this isn't proprietary, you can use your own. As for the quirks and features of this controller, it does work with the Switch seamlessly, pairs up to it, allows you to wake up the console from sleep mode, and it does have the standard features of a Switch Pro controller such as built-in vibration and 6-axis motion sensing. This also does have customizable RGB lighting around both of the analog sticks, as well as a turbo function that can be mapped to the face buttons, D-pad, bumpers, and triggers, as well as 4 remappable rear buttons. You also do have some very interesting rubberized grips, which I will talk about more during the ergonomics and comfort section of this video, but they're pretty darn good. You can adjust the vibration on the fly from 4 different levels of adjustment: off, 30%, 70%, or full regalia, full beans. The remapping of the rear buttons does happen on the fly from the controller itself, and there is 9 different modes of lighting with those RGB rings. This dedicated turbo button does allow you to swap between 3 speeds or modes of turbo function, 1 input every 5 seconds, then 12 and 20 seconds. So if you want to be spamming a button, I do not recommend using that in any type of competitive multiplayer or tournament, but in a single player offline mode, or maybe ticking off your buddies in Smash Bros and couch co-op, you can basically hold down a button and it will continuously spam that button for you. Now the onboard battery is it's a 500 milliamp hour, which will get you roughly 8 to 10 hours of gameplay off of a 2-hour charge time. That's not horrendous, but it isn't great either. There is nothing listed on their website as far as warranty support. There is a 30-day money-back return/refund policy, but I'll also dig up the specific warranty for this controller and insert that footage here. The very back of the instruction manual does specify this product has a 1-year warranty and they will respond to your claim within 24 hours. As for ergonomics, this controller is tipping the scales at 7.9 ounces. At its widest area, which is going to be around the hand grips, it is roughly 6.25 inches wide. An overall grip-to-grip width of 14 inches, and each individual hand grip at its widest point is 5 1/8 inches. I will also have the manufacturer's dimensions and weight right here. As for the ergonomics of this controller, it is incredibly comfortable, and that is because they went with the shell design of an Xbox One controller. The licensed Nintendo Switch Pro controller is very comfortable. However, I do think an Xbox One/Series controller is even more comfortable, and that is the shell design that they went with here. In combination with these rubberized grips that are not only incredibly, well, grippy, but also very comfortable and supple to the hand, this is a very comfortable controller to hold in hand. That also extends to these rear buttons, which are in a very nice placement. We'll talk more about that during the rear button section of the video, but overall, just a very nice controller to hold. As for build quality and fit and finish, this does feel very well put together. The plastics really don't feel cheap and chintzy. This is a flat matte design, no piano or gloss black, so you won't have to worry about micro scratches and fingerprints. But this actually looks and feels like a much more expensive controller than it is. And as for a quality control reputation, there simply is not one. I haven't heard of any horror stories of NYXI controllers crapping out on anybody. So unlike SCUF or the Microsoft Elite 1 and 2 that have a notoriously bad reputation for falling apart in people's hands, there isn't a quality control rep behind this controller, positive or negative. That might be because not a lot of people are buying these controllers in volume, or simply that they're not voicing their opinions online. But doing the stress test, flexing it back and forth, I don't hear any creaks or moans and groans in the plastic, and it feels very well buttoned down. Now as for the D-pad, face or action buttons, start and select buttons, basically everything on the front of the controller minus the thumbsticks. The D-pad feels okay. It is a little bit squishy and mushy as it is a membrane design. There's a rubber plunger mechanism under here, so when you press down on right, it lifts up on the left and vice versa. But that is expected with 90% of controllers or 100% of stock factory controllers. This D-pad is serviceable, but nothing to write home about. Same thing with the face buttons. They are a little bit squishy. They do give you a nice satisfying click to let you know that you have actuated them. They're not mechanical or anything. They are relatively small, but slightly more spaced out than most Switch controllers on the market. And I really do like the cosmetic design or appearance of those face buttons. Now as for the plus... Oh, you fuck. I gotta speak up now. The gardener has arrived and is mowing the lawn. As for the plus, minus, screenshot, and turbo buttons, they do have a nice tactile click, which you're not getting from any of the other face buttons. Now, I do want to specify I'm absolutely not wealthy or anything. It's not like I have a private gardener or anything. It's just a landscaping service. It's actually pretty inexpensive. I used to mow my own lawn, but with videos to shoot and controllers to review, I ain't got time for it. Now, as for the thumbsticks, they do have a very nice feeling, and this comes down to a couple of aspects. They do have anti-friction rings, so you're not grinding along rough plastic when you're at full lock. Also, the rubber compound that they used is very, very grippy and very comfortable on the fingertips. You get a very nice resistance. You have minimal neutral area before you break dead zone, which feels very good. And we are going to measure the out-of-the-box dead zone as well as thumbstick accuracy on the PC in just a moment. But just from a user standpoint, they feel very good. Now, as for aftermarket thumbstick caps, such as Control Freaks, there's nothing listed on the website compatibility-wise. However, the Xbox One seemed to fit very good. PlayStation was a little bit loose and wiggly. And of course, you can use some kind of universal generic slip-over thumbstick cap that just slide over the top, as those work with just about anything. And I would recommend doing that to get a little bit more height on the analog sticks and slightly more grip. Granted, these are very grippy right out of the box, and you could easily game like this. So over here in Gamepad Tester, we're not seeing any measurable dead zones out of the box, which is very, very good. Triggers, as you can see, are on or off. There is no modulating. It is not a linear trigger. It is basically 0 or 100% input. Let's go ahead and measure the circularity, which is going to give us our thumbstick accuracy. Not good. Not good, but not surprising either. Okay, about 20%. Let's run another. Let's run a third and final. Let's go slower this time. Okay, we're getting about 20% average error on the left stick and about 18 on the right. Now, while this doesn't sound good, and it's not, it's actually very par for the course with Nintendo Switch controllers. Generally, a standard licensed Nintendo Switch controller is going to be around 20% average error on the thumbsticks. So it makes sense that third-party controllers are going to be very similar. As for triggers and bumpers, bumpers are in a good ergonomic position. They're easy to actuate no matter where you press them. The plastics do feel a little bit cheap and chintzy on the bumpers and triggers, and the triggers do feel just slightly mushy. However, they're virtually identical to a Switch Pro controller, so this is kind of the norm.
Kevin, it's labeled as a Pro controller. How are those rear buttons?
These are actually very good. They are in a nice ergonomic position where you naturally want to rest your hand. I will say you cannot cover all 4 of the buttons simultaneously. You can squeeze the inward ones with the ball of your finger, or you can cock your fingers and use your fingertips like that. That's not the most ergonomically comfortable. You probably want to hold the controller like this in a neutral position and just use the bone of your middle fingers to depress the buttons. But when you want to press the inward buttons, you do have to slide your finger forward like that to press them, and these can be kind of a chore to hit, especially in intense gameplay where you're not really thinking about, oh, where's my button placement at? Now, you can hold them like this. This is incredibly uncomfortable, but that's the only method of covering all 4 of the buttons simultaneously. Basically, the 2 inward buttons are very accessible, and these inner 2, you're going to have to do a little work to slide your fingers to. To connect to a Nintendo Switch, hold down the pairing button in the back of the controller for around 3 seconds, then go to change grip order and press the 2 top triggers, and your new controller will be recognized. So plugged into the tower of Project Zero with my own USB-C cable, as the included one is quite short. I'm going to show you how to remap the rear paddles. You are going to hold down the turbo button as well as one of the M buttons, which are the rear buttons, and an LED light will indicate depending on which one of the M buttons you have pressed. Then you press whatever button you would like that rear button mapped to. For me, that's going to be B. You saw a little flash. Now press that rear button once again, and it will go back to its regular status indication. So let's remap the rest of the buttons real quick. So we're going to hold down T or turbo button with this rear button right here, and we'll have that bound to Y. Why? Because. Now, if you want to set up a multi-button macro to one of the rear buttons, it is going to be the exact same process, except while you are in remapping state, you are going to press several buttons. So maybe I want BBA, right bumper, left trigger. Then you are going to press the rear button a second time, and it will program the entire string of inputs that you just selected. Now, if you want to clear all of your inputs for the rear buttons and have them defaulted to nothing, you are going to hold down Y and B and then press the home button, and it will clear all of the mapping to the rear buttons. Now, to adjust the RGB lighting, I'm going to go ahead and cut the ring light so you can see these a little bit better. You are going to hold down the turbo button and then click down on L3. And you will scroll through different static or constantly on colors. By holding down turbo and double tapping, you will go through a pulsing or breathing mode, a spectrum cycling mode, and then completely off. And if you want to get back to a static color, you're going to hold down turbo and just simply click. Now, if you want to adjust the brightness, you can hold down turbo and hold down left or right analog stick, and it will adjust the overall brightness. Now, it is slightly unfortunate that you can't control each of the thumbstick rings individually. For example, have this one be teal and this one be purple, the Gamer Heaven theme colors, but it is still a very nice included feature, and I definitely like the effect of the RGB lighting. Not only do you have those rings, but you also get a little peek into the actual thumbstick modules as well, which I think looks really cool. Listed nowhere in the instructions is mentioned if this controller can be Bluetooth to the PC, but I thought I'd try it anyway. It is in discoverable mode right now, but this is only for Bluetooth connection to the Switch. It is not recognized by Windows PC. So after messing around, I actually was able to get this recognized as a Bluetooth device. It's labeled as Pro Controller. So this isn't labeled anywhere in the instruction manual whatsoever, but you're going to hold down this Bluetooth button in the back for around 5 to 10 seconds, and the LED lights will begin flashing back and forth. Then in your Windows 10 or 11 PC, under Bluetooth and other devices, click Add a Bluetooth or other device, and this top option for mice, keyboards, etc. You might think, oh, down here it says Xbox controllers with wireless adapters. Nope, this top one up here, and you will see Pro Controller. So I do think that is something that the manufacturer should add to their instruction manual, is that you can Bluetooth this controller to PC. Now in X Input Polling Rate Tester, which we're going to measure the input delay of this controller, this originally was not recognized. I had to unplug it and replug it 3 times to my PC, but now it is registered, and we're going to go ahead and run a test. I'm seeing some 4s in there, a couple 5s, saw a double digit. That might be operator error. We'll run a couple more tests. We're getting a 6.6 average, minimum 3, maximum 54. Second pull, we got an average of a 6.5. And the third and final run, we got a 6.2 on the average, a 4.5 on the minimum, and a 34.9 on the maximum, displaying a stock refresh rate of 160 Hertz. I do believe this controller is polling rate locked. Just call it woman's intuition, call it spider sense, but we are going to see how this is susceptible to being overclocked. Now, this controller is recognized as a 360 controller for Windows. It is now overclocked, being filtered with a 1000 Hertz polling rate for an estimated 1 milliseconds of input lag or delay. That is if this controller is not polling rate locked, which I do believe it is. Okay, we're getting a 6.08 and a 5.9, so not low enough results to where I can say the overclocking did anything, as it's showing the polling rate is still at 150 Hertz. So I am in Steam big picture mode. I am currently controlling the dashboard with the controller. I did have it Bluetooth and it was working. However, the battery just died, unfortunately. I guess there was no juice right out of the box. So I did play BioShock Infinite as well as Borderlands 2 on the Switch, and then I played Half-Life 2 on my PC for a couple of hours with this controller, and I'm ready to give you my pros, cons, and final verdict. We'll start with the cons because there is less of them. First of all, the fact that it explains nowhere in the instruction manual that you can Bluetooth this controller to PC is pretty crazy. They should definitely add that. Next up, the included USB-C cable is very short. They're assuming that most gamers are just going to use that cable for charging and then play wirelessly with the Switch. However, some people might want to play on their PC, and since they don't know via the instruction manual they can Bluetooth, they're going to be using a wire. So they're going to be using their own USB-C cable. Next up, the thumbsticks are incredibly inaccurate. However, that's not specific to this controller. That's pretty much Switch Pro controllers in general. Next up, I won't list this as a full-blown con. However, it's definitely not a pro either. The battery life is subpar. You're getting about 8 to 10 hours of gameplay out of around 2 to 3 hours of charge time. So that is fast charge time, but not a very long lifespan, as it is only 500 milliamp hours. Now for the pros, it is ergonomically very comfortable, as they went with an Xbox One style shell, and those rubberized grips do feel incredibly good. I also do like the rubber compound they went with on the thumbsticks. It is incredibly grippy to where you don't really need control freaks unless you're just trying to get more height out of the right stick for more leverage when you're aiming. I also do like the rear buttons. They are very easy to remap. They are ergonomic. You can rest your hands on them comfortably. However, you cannot simultaneously cover all 4 of them, so you will need to slide your fingers to the inner buttons. But overall, a good rear button design, especially for Nintendo Switch controllers, which generally don't have the best rear paddle / rear button systems. Next up, it is nice that this does have turbo and macro functions, both features that I personally don't use, but some people might want to use them, and it has them. Next up, the RGB lighting. I will list that as a pro because I think it cosmetically looks good to have a little subtle glow around the analog sticks, and guess what? If you don't like it, you can dim it or turn it off completely. So what is my final verdict? Well, I did mention in the intro there is a huge price discrepancy between the recommended MSRP on their website and what you can actually pick this thing up for on Amazon. On Amazon, it's currently $27, which I think is a tremendous value considering a licensed Nintendo Switch Pro controller is currently $55 and does not include remappable rear buttons, doesn't have macros, doesn't have turbo, doesn't have RGB, doesn't have that more ergonomic shell design, doesn't have the good rubberized grips. Yes, the Switch Pro controller does have rubber grips. The ones on the NYXI Chaos that I tested here today are better. The only thing I think the licensed Nintendo Switch controller has over this one would probably be the out-of-the-box battery life. But in all other aspects, this is a better controller than the licensed Switch controller for about half the price. If you're looking to pick up a second Pro controller, or maybe you don't have a Pro controller period, I do recommend this controller. It is linked in the description below, and I'll see you tomorrow with another controller review. Peace. If you enjoyed the video, liking it helps it to get seen by more gamers. This information will reach and assist them as well, which in turn helps me grow this little channel, which I do greatly appreciate. Subscribe for more content like this. I cover news in the gaming community and industry, tutorials helping you get set up streaming and YouTubing, as well as honest gaming product reviews, keyboards, mice, headsets, controllers, mics, chairs, etc. There are some hefty exclusive discount codes found only in the description of my videos and only for the audience here at Gamer Heaven. Check out Into the AM for some of the sickest looking and most comfortable cloth to ever grace my gaming giblets. If you don't want to be scorching your corneas with harmful blue light, check out Gamer Advantage, the only blue light glasses on the market that look sexy and actually work. If you're looking for a custom controller that'll blow the competition's tits back, AIM definitively has the best bang for buck or price to performance when it comes to Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch controllers. Nope, they don't do Switch, but they do gaming mice. I said doo-doo. I have links to all my other platforms and socials in the description below. If you need a quick laugh or blast of gamer adrenaline, check my short form videos out at TikTok. To get in touch with myself and the Stallions and Stallionettes of Gamer Heaven, join the community Discord, and check me out at twitch.tv where I go live every other leap year on a blue moon if it falls into an odd calendar number and my pH balance is on point. Just kidding, starting June I'm going to be live streaming a lot. Thanks for watching. This has been AK40 Kevin hosting Gamer Heaven, and I'll see you tomorrow because I upload daily, all the time, 60% of the time, sometimes, most of the time. Peace.